Starting off at Massey's, the Booster Locks landing tank continues to be readied for testing. Gigabay workstand assembly begins at Sanchez. Roof truss sections are getting bolted together inside the Gigabay at the launch site. And Booster 20 rewrote the record books with a roughly 25-second static fire over at the launch site.
Hey there! My name's Matt. We'll cover those headlines and a whole lot more in this week's episode, number 137 of RGV Aerial Photography's Starbase Flyover Report. And as you can see by the view behind me, Toto, we're not in Florida anymore. We're in Japan, baby. This week's flyover was conducted on Saturday, July the 11th, and unfortunately, the reason why it's a little bit late is because of me and my trip over to Japan, so I truly apologize, everyone. The weather, again, was great this week, so we were able to get a ton of killer shots for you guys to put into this report. So buckle up, grab a snack, and enjoy the ride as we get you caught up to speed with everything going on in and around Starbase, Texas.
Let's kick things off right at the flame trench. Around the back of the truss structure, workers are actively installing fresh scaffolding. And over on the other side, a crane and man lift are positioned near the outer triangle frames that were previously used to suspend the squeeze arms, and protective covers have been carefully placed over the sensitive equipment down below. Interestingly, at the time of this writing, both the left and right frames have actually been completely removed. This is a massive sign that we likely won't be seeing any more squeeze testing on complete starships. Moving nearby to the COPV testing site, crews are actively cutting up the concrete leading from this area right around the flame trench to prep for some upcoming work. Looks like SpaceX's concrete guys get to keep their jobs for another day. Just to the side of the site, massive packs of water pipes and black pipes have been staged, heavily suggesting they're bound for this brand new trenching work. And check out this totally new site down at Massey's. Parked right at the end of the flame trench is a massive Grove GMK 7450 crane. Whether it's just hanging out here for storage or gearing up for a heavy-duty job on site remains to be seen. Shifting our focus over to the nose cone jail, a brand new accumulator has been installed right at the top of the structure. Down below, the press line for test tank 39.1 has been completely removed, strongly hinting that we might finally be seeing the end of the testing campaign for this specific tank. And over at the Super Crusher, the massive squeeze arms have officially been installed right into the test stand. We also spotted some brand new pump skids being delivered to the site, which could very well be destined for the new nitrogen tank farm expansion. And again, like last week, just before we move on to Sanchez, let's take a super quick look at the brand new construction site near the Highway 4 storage lot. The CFA rig has been incredibly busy driving piles all around the perimeter of the prepped pad, and if you look closely, you can even spot red circles marking out the exact positions for even more incoming piles, with a few extra markings painted over on the opposite side as well. We're still waiting to see if these are the deep foundations for a massive new building or just the footings for a heavy perimeter wall. Toward the center of the site, crews are already assembling heavy rebar cages, and a temporary fence has been thrown up to surround all this new work. Finally, this week gives us a clear look at exactly where the new drainage system will route right into the waterway. With all that covered, let's fly on over and check out all the action at the Sanchez site. Starting over at the OLM construction area, we're finally spotting some real progress on Pad 1's OLM. The fourth section of the massive base has officially been moved into place, meaning the next step should be the installation of the corners, but things are also disappearing. This week, one of the middle-level OLM sections, the ones that actually hold the clamp arms, was completely removed from the site, and shortly after our flyover, a second one went missing too. Additionally, another of the water deluge top deck sections has totally vanished. There's some heavy speculation that these massive parts are being shipped all the way to Roberts Road at the Kennedy Space Center to prioritize the OLM build for Slick 37. Over in the transport stand fabrication area, that massive factory stand has gained an extra level. Interestingly enough, this new top level features a noticeably smaller diameter than the rest of the structure. Down below, most of the drop-down edges on the lower level and all the decking on the middle level have been fully installed. Nearby, all the construction supports for the ship transport stand have been shoved off to the side, and the factory jig was rolled right into their spot. This clever shuffle perfectly cleared up enough room for yet another one of those thinner type jigs to be assembled. Down in the scrapyard, The second lower half of those heavy turntables has been completely scrapped, while one of the upper interface rings has already begun its own demise. Meanwhile, the manifold section of Booster 18 sits safely tucked away in the corner, at least for now. Moving near the Tesla Megapack area, jackhammers have been incredibly busy breaking up the heavy concrete foundations left behind by those recently removed LNG tanks. Work is also continuing near the wellheads, with pump equipment now actively connected to various parts of the water treatment plant. Over at the Rocket Garden, that brand new Mi-Jack travel lift we spotted last week has been given a crisp coat of white paint, which is usually a dead giveaway that it is officially owned and operated by SpaceX. But the absolute big ticket item for Sanchez this week is the assembly of the massive workstation stands for the new Gigabay. The platform section, which will raise and lower during vehicle construction and engine installation, already has most of its base structural steel bolted together. And right next to it, parts for a brand new ship work stand have been bolted down to a set of construction jigs, with even more of those parts staged just above them. We also spotted 6 legs staged nearby that feature the exact lifting mechanisms used to raise and lower the platform. Furthermore, a complete set of 6 curved sections for the very first stand are grouped closely together. This set features 4 longer arcs and 2 shorter ones, perfectly matching the asymmetry of the new transport stands. And of course, there are even more of those parts staged right nearby. Elsewhere, long lengths of cable tray are currently being mounted right onto those new vertical stands we spotted last week. And in a very interesting twist, a significant amount of scaffolding has popped up around Booster 12. Could this mean crews are prepping it for a future display? Let us know what you think in the comment sections down below. Finally, wrapping up near Megabay 2, we noticed the Starlink loading box is completely missing. It was actually rolled straight into the Star Factory to get loaded up with 20 real-deal V3 Starlink satellites. We also caught both of the ship test stands finally getting a well-deserved rest here following that absolutely hectic testing campaign for Ship 40 and 41, though the ship cryo stand didn't rest for long before it made its way right back out to Massey's for storage. Before we head over to the build site, I want to give a massive shout out to all of our YouTube and Patreon members. As a quick reminder, all of our patrons get exclusive access to our show and tell sessions on the exact same day of each flight. It's a great chance to jump into the discussions and ask your own questions over on our Discord server. For our YouTube members, you get to dive into our live and always entertaining chat section. It's the perfect place to learn and discuss the weekly progress with the community. Plus, you get to ride along with the live flyover stream as it's happening, getting real-time access to our pictures the second they're taken. If you want to be the very first to see these amazing shots, that's the place to be. Also, don't forget about our brand new Tuesday show, Starbase Expanded, airing live on YouTube at 6 p.m. Central, where we dive deep into all the updates since our weekend stream, and we cover the external support facilities we don't usually get into on the main show, like Rio West, the Ad Astra School, and a whole lot more. So if you want to stay on top of literally everything happening in and around Starbase, be sure to tune in. Let's kick things off with a look around the Gigabay. The assembly of all that massive steel is making steady progress right across the top level. If we peek straight down into the left-hand aisle, we can see the heavy end truss sections for the inner wall side of the span. Just a couple of bays over, the middle sections of those massive truss beams are actively being assembled, which will completely close the gap once they're mated to the 2 end sections. Over in the opposite aisle, all the equipment needed to lift the final tower crane to its maximum height is currently staged right at its base, gearing up for a big lift in the coming days. Outside, the cladding crew has been crushing it. They just finished slapping 3 more levels onto the factory side and have already pivoted to working on the next 3 rows for the front of this enormous building. Vehicle assembly is also moving along beautifully. Booster 22's A5 section officially rolled into Megabay 1 on July 9th. Huge thanks again to Avid Space and Vix for compiling the footage. Definitely give them a follow on X. We also saw Booster 19 return to the bay after wrapping up its static fire test on July 12th. But the real star right now is Booster 20. After spending only 2 short days inside the bay, it made its highly anticipated return to the launch site on July 14th. This marks its final rollout ahead of Flight 13, which is scheduled for Thursday, July 16th. As of this recording, Flight 13 was a scrub and is rescheduled for the following Monday. Our cameras out at the pad even captured its arrival in the epic lift straight onto the OLM. Moving right next door to Mega Bay 2, Ship 42's Common Dome barrel section was smoothly rolled in on July 11th. And while we're talking ship production, Starship Gazer was passing by the Star Factory and managed to photograph Ship 43's nose cone being successfully stacked right onto its payload bay section. Ship 43 is slated for Flight 15, which is actually planned to be the historic first flight from the launch pad at LC-39A over at the Kennedy Space Center. Gearing up for Flight 13, the Starlink loading box was moved into the bay, quickly followed by Ship 40 itself. The ship was then successfully loaded with 20 Starlink V3 satellites. According to an awesome news update on SpaceX website, 6 of these satellites have been specifically modified with a suite of cameras designed to scan Starship's heat shield. They'll transmit imagery down to operators to test new methods of analyzing the heat shield's readiness for return to launch site catches on future missions. A huge shout out to Vix again for putting together the avid space footage of these latest ship section movements. Following payload integration, Ship 40 made its way out to the launch site on July 15th and was stacked perfectly on top of the booster later that night. And once again, our cameras were rolling to catch that epic rollout. Finally, let's wrap up this segment with a quick look at Starship Park. All of the concrete steps have now been fully poured on one side, while over on the opposite side, the final 8 steps have their formwork locked in and ready to go. Around the rear of the structure, formwork has started on the ramps right where we saw rebar extending from the base layer of concrete. And down below, cutouts for a brand new door and window are now clearly visible. Zooming out, you can see formwork is also actively set up for the front wall, and crews are definitely gearing up for the interior, with packs of insulation staged nearby as workers actively cut them to size before installation. That's a wrap for the build site, so let's fire up the engines and head on over to the launch site. Wrapping up this massive update, let's start over at Pad 2, where Booster 20 is standing tall on the launch mount following its incredibly successful 33-engine static fire. This test actually clocked in as the longest static fire by a booster in the entire program's history, blazing away for nearly 25 seconds. SpaceX was quick to drop the epic video footage of the event over on X, and it is an absolute must-watch. Jumping back up to the sky, a tight shot of Booster 20 offers us another highly detailed look at the upgraded protection wrapping around its forward dome. Looking over at the chopsticks, we caught crews actively removing the massive actuator from the right arm following an unknown issue. But SpaceX doesn't waste any time. A replacement actuator had already arrived on site and was actively being unloaded straight from its transport crate. Down at the D1 entrance, steady progress continues on the boundary wall. Interestingly, crews are still opting to pour these smaller sections using a crane-lifted concrete hopper rather than bringing in a standard pump truck. Just nearby, comms bunker repairs are moving along beautifully, with the new concrete walls officially finished. Once the heavy doors are installed, teams can finally begin reinstalling all those crucial internal systems. Cutting across the middle of the site, that massive line of sheet piles is continuing its march toward Pad 1. We also spotted a pair of tube piles specifically used for the alignment beam, heavily suggesting that this line of sheet piles is about to angle directly toward the tower itself. And speaking of Tower 1, with the roof frame now completely finished, crews are already hard at work hoisting and installing the heavy exterior cladding. Down in the Pad 1 flame trench, the massive southern exit has officially been completely excavated. This week, we saw all 3 of the lower pre-assembled bunker sections successfully installed, and by July 13th, the towering above-ground sections were already moving perfectly into place. Right at the corner of the trench, you can spot the last few remaining pieces of the SQD arm extension, including a massive plate that was actually part of the complex mechanism used to articulate the claw attachment. The SQD plate itself is still hanging out just near the corner of the pad, and just nearby, those heavy deluge pipes that were delivered recently are actively being welded together into much longer sections, gearing up for their eventual installation. Swinging past the front of the tank farm, the sprawling utility work has finally reached the 4 main vaults, officially completing this end of the conduit run. Right in the middle of the farm, the very final row of tank foundations has been fully formed and is standing by for a massive concrete pour. The 2 adjacent tanks are already proving their worth. They were put to excellent use during Booster 20's static fire testing acting as holding tanks for the liquid vapor return system to drastically reduce venting from the LOX wall vents. Heading out toward the highway, the space where the original comms bunker used to sit is now freshly paved over with a brand new concrete slab. And finally, wrapping up our entire flyover down at the ASU, the conduits running along the highway have officially been tied directly into the vaults, and the massive water pipes are nearly fully hooked up with just one single pipe left to pass across the entrance.
Thank you for choosing RGV Aerial Photography. We really hope you enjoyed the flight and report this week. If you like what you saw today, be sure to hit that like button down below. And be sure to hit that subscribe button just in case you haven't. And be sure to share it with all your space-loving friends so that you can stay up to speed on all the live streams, videos, and additional content that we put out each and every week. And until then, I'm Matt. We'll see you next week from around 6,000 feet and Japan.